Page 11, run, mouse, run. They can clap the count, the rhythm, all that. You can take care of that out back. We'll talk about the piece. The 3/4 time, we're going to count to 3, and we're counting quarter notes. That's what those numbers are about. If you look at the measures in the upper staff, you'll see 3 quarter notes in the first couple measures. That works out. That's what you do in 3/4 time. You're going to count 3, and there's quarter notes, or the equivalent, or the same as 3 quarter notes. If you look at the third measure, it's a dotted half note. I've already told you to memorize a dotted half note is the same as 3 quarter notes. Just memorize that. So, in here, a dotted half note gets 3 counts, because a quarter note gets 1 count. Actually, it's going to get 4. I'll get there in a minute. So, let's just go over, and again, if you don't know the names of these notes yet, just play them and say them. Forget the rhythm, just play them and say it. Got E, 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 D, 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 C. So just go through and play them and say them. Then we can go back and add the rhythm. And I'm just going to take it one hand at a time because it's hard enough doing that. So at the right hand, it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Well, it's already interesting, isn't it? It's going to get more interesting. I've ignored these curved lines so far because I felt you had enough to think about. These curved lines, and if you look at the previous pieces we've done, well, look at the bottom of page 10. You see there's curved lines over those? Those lines, that curved line in music has different purposes. It's like 4 or 5 different purposes it can have in music. 3 main ones you'll see a lot, and a couple others occasionally. And it's confusing sometimes because you don't know which meaning that curved line is sometimes. You're figuring it out. Well, is it this or that or what? Because it's the same curved line. For our purposes right now, we're going to say that curved line, the way they're using it, is called a phrase line, a phrase. It indicates a musical phrase. A musical phrase is a musical sentence. We talk in sentences. We just talk. It's normal, it's talking sentences. Yay, team, it's a sentence. Well, music can be played in sentences, and you'll hear them. So go back to the bottom of page 10 on this one. That's one sentence. And then the other sentence, that's the other sentence. The idea is between the sentences, you lift up. It's like taking a breath. So you're going to cut the one note a little short so you can lift up. It's not a big lift up. It's just a lift up. And the beat has to be steady. So again, lift up, lift up. That's all it is. It just tells you when to do that. Now, it has other things, but right now, that's what we're going to use it for. So in mouse run, mouse run, you have those in there, and I'll come back to them and talk about them a little later. I just want you to understand what it means right now. Because if you look at the C in the third measure and the fourth measure, there's another curved line under them. Well, that's a different meaning. That's called a tie. It ties the notes together. In other words, you play the first note and hold it down for the length of both. You see, in music, we have a limitation based on time signature. In 3/4 time, the longest note I can have is 3 counts long. It's a dotted half note. I can't have any note longer than that. So what happens when I want to have a note longer than that? I mean, I want a note to last for 10 beats. Well, that's where ties come in. You tie them together. So you'd only play the first note and you'd hold it down for the length of however many notes are tied together. So the rule for ties is it can only be 2 notes and they have to be the same note. You can't change notes. So here we look at, they're both C's. You have a dotted half note C and you have a quarter note C. It's the same note. It's a C. It doesn't have to be the same value. That's not important. It's the note that's the same. And there's only 2 of them. So that line goes between them. That tells you tie them together. So to play it, it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, tie, rest. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, tie, rest. Got an F sharp there in third line. So forth, so that's the tie. Now go down to the last line. Here. 1, 2, 3, tie, 2, rest. See, there the two C's are tied together, but it's a dotted half and a half, so that's 5 counts. You're going to hold that down. So once you have a handle on the melody, now let's look at the other stuff. The accompaniment, you have the C chord, rest, 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 rest. Isn't this fun? We're just going to love this. This is so hard here. 1, 2, 3. Go down to the third line. Now the left hand gets some melody here in the second measure there, the third line. 3, 1, 2, F sharp. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, rest, rest, rest. Don't you love the rest? Okay. Once you have a handle on that, see if you can put the hands together here. Together, 4 notes. Make sure this left hand is 1 count only. Don't hold it down longer than that. Again. 1, 2, 3, 1, rest. Right there. Then you play the C. You're holding that down, but this is just one beat. 1, 2, 3, rest. And then they both come up for they both get a rest. They both come up? All right, yeah. 1, 2, 3, 1, rest. 1, 2. Again, this is the second line, first measure. You're going to hold that down for 2 counts. You're going to hold that down for 1 count. 1, rest. So on beat 2, that's by itself. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, rest. 1, 2. 2, rest. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, off. And even at the end, the hands come up at different times. The last measure, that's a half note. Comes up on beat 3. 1, 2, 3. But that is just 1 count. So the last 2 measures, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You come up. We try and be accurate with this. It's so important because as the music gets more involved and more complicated, this becomes even more important. So I'm asking you to get into the habit of being accurate of when you lift these notes up. Now when I go to learn a new piece of music, I have a particular set of steps that I go through to learn it. And everybody has their own set. You'll develop your own style and your own system. That's fine. But for these videos, we use my system because that's what I'm used to. And what I do is I look the piece over first. Quarter notes, dotted half, to get an idea what's in it, how long it is. It's 4 lines long. Okay, that's fine. I look at the time signature, 3, 4. Then I go through one hand at a time and I make sure I can play each hand separately. Then I go through and I try and put the hands together. And that's usually a big adventure right there. Sometimes I have to go back and practice one hand again at a time. But eventually I get the hands together. Then I go through and I get rid of any hesitations. Because the beat has to be a steady beat. It can be slow, but it's got to be a steady beat. So I work on that. Then once I have that, I put in what's known as articulation. Oh, you're going to love these big words. I'll talk more about it. It's just big fancy words to kind of say, how do you play the note? We haven't had any real articulation up until now. When I told you about these phrases, that has to do with articulation. And so this is where I start, okay, now let's do the phrasing. So we're going to lift up between each phrase. Well, in this piece, most of the time it doesn't matter. You have a rest. You have to lift up. Because you look at the end of the first line, 1, 2, 3, 1, rest. See, you have a rest, you have to lift up at the end of the phrase. But look at the third line. There's no rest in there. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. See, there's silence between the C and the G. It's just lift. It's as though one hand played it all. There's a little silence, so we're taking a breath. 1, 2, 2. I don't agree with this phrasing. I think it should be all one phrase connected, but they put it in separate ones, and that gives us a chance to practice lifting up. It's okay. So we do the articulation, and then I do the dynamics, or the louds and softs. At the beginning, F is forte for loud. That's the melody. This is where we get back into going to make it more complicated. You're just going to love it. Remember? No? Okay. We're here for the melody. A dynamic, when it's given in music, applies to the melody. They're telling you, I want the melody loud. It doesn't say, I don't know how loud is. You'll have to decide what you think loud is. I can't help you there, but here. It's not as loud as you can play. There's louder than this. It's just loud. The point is, the accompaniment has to be in the background. So can you play one hand loud and the other hand soft at the same time? It's hard to do. Now in the third line, the left hand gets to play loud too because it's melody. 2, 3. 2, 3, 1, 2, off. So you play one hand louder than the other, and you can exaggerate this to get a handle on it. I struggled with this at first. I wanted to do both hands the same. It takes a while, be patient, but I'm asking you to keep working on it. So after you've got it learned and you get to the part where you can add the dynamics, this is where you start thinking about play the melody louder than the other stuff. Now it gets tricky too, because if you hit a piece of music where they want the melody soft, well then the accompaniment has to be super duper soft, really soft. Good luck with that, but it takes time to get the control, but I'm asking you to work on it. You will get it if you'll work on it eventually. Kind of frustrating at first, but you'll get it. I'd like to play this with you very slowly to double check the notes and the rhythms. Now I'm not going to do any dynamics, and I'm going to play both hands about the same so you can hear them. I'll give us 3 counts, so let's just go over it very slowly together. 1, ready, go. 3, 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. Rest. 3, 1, 2, rest. Now, as though you haven't had enough, let's add some more. Oh, well, all right. At the bottom of the page, there's a duet part. A duet is when you have 2 people playing music or singing or whatever at the same time, a piece of music at the same time. That's called a duet. I would like to do the duet part at the bottom. You don't need to learn that part. You play this part we just played. You'll be able to hear the duet. I can't hear you, but you can hear me if you'll stay with me. You have to pay attention to what you're doing because your music is different than the duet part. So if you can play your part and keep a steady beat, you listen to what I'm doing to stay with me, but you got to pay attention to what you're doing because it's different than mine. It's kind of hard to do. Playing duets with people or playing with other people at the same time takes some practice. It takes some getting used to. Now the duet part has a part in the middle. The third line, when you're playing the third line, the duet part is silent. There's resting there. Well, that doesn't work. I mean, if we were together where we could hear each other, that would work okay, but I can't hear you, and so I need to be able to make sure you stay on the beat. So I'm going to sort of play something. Maybe I'll play this part down here. That while you play that, just to stay, so we can stay together. That's all I'm saying. So I'll give us 3 counts, and let's try this together. I'm going to speed it up a little bit. 1, ready, go.